Hello everyone. This is a short tutorial about a certain idea that you can apply to Lord of the Flies. And this is going to form part of a series of tutorials about some big ideas that we can link to the novel. So what I'd like to do firstly is a bit of active thinking. If you can think about how you behave when you're on your own, or when you're with your parents, or with a member of staff, a teacher, for example, and then I'd like you to think about comparing that behavior to how you are with your friends. That's with your friends at break and lunchtime at school, or when you're on a day out together somewhere, or you're at a football match or any other sports fixture, or you're at the cinema, etc. So pause the video here and have a think about how you behave differently when you're in a group of friends, as opposed to when you're on your own or with some adults. Right then, famously, Gustave Le Bon wrote a book about mob mentality and about how we are different in a crowd, and this was called The Crowd. Now, Gustave Le Bon was an expert really in many fields: medicine, psychology, and physics. But he studied human behavior and how we alter our behavior when we're part of a group, and he suggested that we behave in a less civilized way when we're as part of a group, and we actually become less civilized and more barbaric just as a result of being part of a larger group. So there are three reasons for this, really. There are three reasons for our change in behavior, and different people react differently. Some people jump into a crowd straight away and start acting with this kind of crowd mentality. Others are less susceptible to it, and there are reasons for that. And we can link this to Lord of the Flies and how perhaps Ralph and Piggy aren't quite as susceptible to the crowd mob mentality on the island. Now, the three causes, Gustave Le Bon states, are: one, anonymity. Now, if you think about how maybe a riot at a football match, or the riots we had in London a few years ago, people wouldn't necessarily act like that if they were on their own or with one friend, but because they feel anonymous as part of a group, they feel like they're invincible and they can get away with doing things that they wouldn't normally do. So there's footage of people throwing a Molotov cocktail, smashing shop windows, stealing things. I remember seeing this live on television and thinking, those people wouldn't act like that normally on their own. They're only doing it because they're part of a group and they feel like they can get away with doing it. So they are going to have a go. There's also no fear of consequences with that. So they feel as if they can just get away with it. Secondly, is something called contagion. Now, this is basically a fancy way of saying fads. And you can also apply this to behaviors at school, if you like. Now, as a group mentality, you'll find that either a big mob will act the same way, they might even dress the same way. So it might be that you can think of a group at school who wear the same shoes, and I mean exactly the same model of shoes, because they don't want to feel like an individual. They don't want to feel left out. They want to be part of that mob, that group. Therefore, they wear the uniform of that group. So this is what we call herd mentality, and you buy things because someone else buys them. This has happened many times in the past. It happened in the Netherlands with tulips, and how and people started spending their life savings on tulips because they were seen as a symbol of status. And this has happened many times. People buying diamonds in wedding rings as a kind of supposedly a gesture of love, and it all stems from a certain idea and at a certain time and place. Diamonds haven't been bought for millennia. It's a fairly recent phenomenon. Thirdly, is something called suggestibility, which is to do with something that I've talked about with my groups, this idea of populist leaders or demagogues. Now, the word demagogue comes from the ancient Greek, demos, meaning people, and a gogos meaning the leader. So it's like a leader of the people. Now in the 20th century, where we had loads of these popping up, and we've got a few of them these days as well. These people that kind of talk as if they're spouting the truth, and the mob mentality means that we hang on every single word they say, almost like in a hypnotic trance, and we believe everything they say as being real, and we believe everything they say as leading us to a better reality and a better life. So we end up becoming these kind of brainwashed whores that just believe everything they say and believe their rhetoric. So the power of their rhetoric plays into this, but the more suggestible a leader is, the more we are likely to fall for their rhetoric and their politics. So have a think about this. Have a think about how you react in a mob, in a group, and then apply it to Lord of the Flies, because not every single character in Lord of the Flies belongs to this mob mentality, and those who don't shortly fall victim of the mob. So I hope that helps. Have a think.